UK. The program offers you that unrestricted voice on issues affecting you in the UK. Join us live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. As part of our continued efforts to reach the African and other ethnic communities in the United Kingdom with greater impact. Good morning and thank you for joining us on the program today. Today is another beautiful Monday morning. Luckily it's a bank holiday and it's the Monday, the bank holiday after the terror attack in Manchester. Our sincere condolences to those who lost their life in that very horrific, barbaric incident. On the program today, we'll be talking about countering violent extremism in our community, dealing with violent extremism in our community. You have opportunity to call into the studio to share with us what you think and how you think we can deal with violent extremism that is actually ravaging our community across the world, from Europe to America to Africa. What can we do to keep our world safe? Are politicians doing enough at all to ensure that we are safe? Are the citizens playing their role to ensure that suspects are orderly reported to the police? Are religious leaders, religious organizations also playing their role in the community? These are some of the issues we'll be taking a look at on the program today. My name is Tunde Alabi. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the show. I'm joined this morning by two community members. They are leaders in the community and they are politicians. One at the moment is a parliamentary candidate and the other was a parliamentary candidate in the last election. I'm now joined on the program today by Tope Olodo, the parliamentary candidate for Christian Alliance Party. Tope, thank you for joining us. Christian People's Alliance, thank you for joining us on the program. And I'm joined by Ashburn Older. Ashburn Older is a community leader. He is an advocate of youth empowerment and security for our youth. He's one man who has been committed to dealing with societal ills, more importantly within the Black Caribbean community. He was a parliamentary candidate for the Lib Dem in the last election. Ashburn Oda, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Tope, you are not just a politician, you are an expert in counter-terrorism, having worked in that department for one of the government agencies in the UK and having written several books around counter-terrorism.
Exactly.
With the news of Monday Manchester attack, how, with that news, what were your thoughts?
I think I should start by saying my condolence to the family, because it's just about 7 days, so I understand what is going on within the community now. I've been talking for the past few years about diaspora radicalization as a new wave of attack that will be coming into mainland Britain. Diaspora radicalization is simply individuals who are radicalized, who are British citizens of second and third migrant generation. I've talked about the fact that if you look at the trend after 7 July, the 7/7 bombing, all the people that have been involved in radicalization are diasporans. So we're not talking of new immigrants coming into the UK either as asylum seekers or as economic migrants actually getting involved in radicalization. And the reason is because the driver of terrorism is completely different. What is driving these individuals who are radicalized, who are British citizens, is completely different from what is driving individuals in the past who were involved in violence extremism. We have a challenge now where the MI5 have already said that they are dealing with about 15,000 active cases, about 3,000 jihadists, who are very, very, serious ones. 500 actually very, very serious. So we have a challenge here, and it's unfortunate that the media have not really helped in this situation. And I think this is where myself and my brother here agree that when you are a 100-meter Sussex track person, you are English, not just British. You know, they say, oh, it's English. It's from Walthamstow. But immediately you commit an offense, you become a British Libyan. You become a British Nigerian. And that tag is one of the drivers of terrorism. And we need to be, of course, we as parents, we need, and community need to be responsible for some of our kids. And we're going to talk about that. And the Muslim community also have a role to play. But I think we need to move into a state where every one of us, regardless of whether you commit a sin or not, you are still a British citizen or you are still a citizen, and they should look at it and say, this British citizen, British born citizen has committed an offense. That gives that sense of belonging to all the others that might even have a plan of getting involved in this violence extremism. Because when you start tagging someone and say, oh, he is British, but he's from a Libyan heritage, then you're saying that we disassociate from him because he's not one of us. We are all one. And whether it's committed, if my son commits an offense, I would say he's my son, but that offense that is committed is wrong. And I think that is one of the drivers of terrorism. I know we're going to be talking about that in some few minutes.
Ashburn, let me ask you your thoughts, same line. What are your thoughts? I mean, when you heard about that Manchester incident, what came to your mind?
Well, first of all, can I just say my condolences to the family. It was a tragedy. It was sad. It was the thought about the incident of 22 children, and sort of I think 8 of them were kids, that died in that sort of horrific attack. That is so unfortunate. So it's heartbreaking for any parents just to think of your child was here. They've gone out for sort of an evening, and to come back to find out, or get the news to find out your child has died in such a horror. This is sort of unimaginable that any parents, and that goes for both sides of the family. We just can't look at the actual terrorist family as well. It's going through the same trauma as the actual victims. So it is sad, and it is unfortunate, and my heart went for them. I do feel their pain, because, you know, any parents, just imagine that's happened to your child. It's you know, you just haven't got words for it. However, saying that, the incident, we've got to look at the whole picture of why this thing happened. We've got to look at the circumstances of even the terrorist, the guy that created the incident. He's only a young man. He's 22. He's a child. And the age we're looking at, between the age of 16 to 25, these are vulnerable children. Those children sort of so dangerous at this age, especially between the age of 17 to 20. They don't care. And for them, we'll look a little bit more into his background. So, you know, it is sad. We as community leaders, and we as diasporas, and we as church leaders, we need to have a good insight and see how we're going to improve on that, and how we're going to make, as you rightly said, our children more belong and feel part of society. Because at the minute our children feel disorientated, that they really don't know where they are. They're in limbo. We don't know if we're British, we're English, if we're from Nigeria or Africa. And these things that when they use this word black, you know, I've got a problem with that now. I'm beginning to get a problem with this black thing. We need to readdress this black thing. There's nowhere in the world, or in Africa where my ancestors came from, called a black country. I never heard of it. I've heard of Africa, I've heard of Nigeria, I've heard of Lagos. We are not black. There's no black. We need to address this. I think it's time our society look at this word black, and we need to definitely have some definition of this word and have some identity. My ancestors came from, I don't know what part of Africa they came from when they was brought in the Caribbean. So I'm from Africa, not black Africa. No such word. So that's something we've got to look at, this term black, and give our children some identity. Like, you're born in England, you're English.
Yes.
You're born in Nigeria, you're Nigerian. There's no black Nigerian, no black Ghanaian. There's no such thing, or Kenyan or whatever. When you're in Kenya, in Africa, you're not saying black Kenyan.
No.
You say I'm Kenyan. When I'm in the Caribbean, and sort of my parents' ancestors, I don't say I'm black Caribbean. I'm saying I'm St. Lucian, Antiguan, and Jamaican. So we need to look at identity, and we need to start changing this thing and give our children this identity that they belong to somewhere. So that's something we need to address.
Tope, would you think the politicians have done enough in dealing with violent extremism? say around the world now, not only in the United Kingdom, in the US, in Europe, in Africa, in the UK, have politicians, policymakers, decision makers done enough?
Every country is different, and they all use different.
Okay, let's start with UK.
The UK.
Let's look at the UK.
The UK has what we.
considering the
The
Manchester
UK
attack.
has after the 7/7 bombing, the UK created an office called the Office for Security and Counterterrorism, and that office then developed the strategy called the contest strategy, and the contest strategy has a four P's. So we have the prevent strand of it, we have the pursue strand, we have the protect strand, and we have the prepare strand. Now, the prevent is the aspect that really deals with what we're talking about, which is radicalization, where if individuals are identified as being radicalized or moving towards violence extremism, what you normally do is get a section, a group called channels. It's like a kind of a little committee that looks at, okay, this boy is being radicalized. Now, there are pockets of organizations that have been given projects to work with kids that are identified as being violent extremists or moving towards that route, and they try to de-radicalize them. And we know a lot of them in the community. I worked with those groups, so I know a little bit about that. The challenge we have is that we have a system that is not fully inclusive. And I'll say that with all due respect to the security services, because they concentrated initially on the Al-Qaedas, of this world as of the time when it started. And when the conservative and Liberal Democrat came together as a coalition party, they watered down some of the contest strategy, watered it down, so they removed the control. There was a control system in place, where you could get control order, and they brought in, TP, and even the Prime Minister actually said some few days ago, or a few hours ago, that they've only managed to use it once or twice, to hold people down. But what that normally do is that when the security services identify an individual as being actually over that threat level, becoming more of a threat, they could restrict their movement, they could restrict their access to computer, they could restrict their access to certain individuals, and that really helped, because a large number of people were, at least being curtailed at that time. But, with this watering down, because we need to actually, agree that these individuals will kill anybody. It doesn't matter whether you're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, or whatever you are. If you are in a place where they have targeted, everybody is going down. So for that reason, I'm not saying we should forgo our liberty, but we need to become more innovative. So for me personally, I believe we should move away from having a watch list to a threat list. Because if an individual like this boy that we're talking about, a 22-year-old, had been flagged 5 times to security services, and yet he traveled through border security, which is immigration now, and came through the airport, flying in from Libya, and nobody stopped him. This guy is on a list somewhere. This guy has been flagged. Why is it that there's a misinformation between the immigration service and the security service? All these individuals who are, if you've traveled to countries like, I'm not saying this because I want to tag any particular country, but if you travel to a country like Yemen, if you travel to somewhere like Libya, if you travel to somewhere like Iraq, if you travel somewhere like Syria, if you are coming in, you should be stopped. You should be asked questions. Where are you coming from? Or why did you go there? Just simple questions, and then have a follow-up afterwards. But you can't just have people traveling to places and getting trained up. We know a lot of youth are coming back from Syria, going through different routes and coming through Tunisia and things. If they don't have families in those areas, and even if they have family, you should question them, at least have a note on them. And this individual have been flagged up. These families in Manchester should not be going through this grief if our security services have done what they should do. Of course, we know that they stopped 18 terrorist plot in the last 3 years, but the bottom line remains that this one has slipped through the crack, and it should not have happened.
Well, would some of the things you have opined not be high-handedness? Would they not contribute to the extremism itself? When you say people's movement who have been flagged,
Okay.
should uh, restricted, people going to certain countries should be stopped. Would some of these young boys
Okay.
that I mean, just the way Hashbon said earlier on, that look, they care very less, will that not trigger further violence in
Now,
them?
let me explain this, and I think our viewers and anybody that is listening from the Secret Service need to get this right. If we have 3,000 active jihadists who are ready to do anything out there, left to me, if I'm in the security service, I would say tag them. I said tag the whole 3,000, because tagging only costs 13 pounds a month to tag. Tag them, put a tag on them, and restrict their movement to crowded places. That's me. I'll say you can't go to certain places at certain time, and if they cross that boundary, I'll put them on a shoot at sight, because we know that these individuals are dangerous. Now, if some people have been advocating in the last 48 hours, and I know you are aware of it, that we should use the atonement, and just lock them up like they got cannabis. I'm not. I'm against that, because innocent people could be picked up, and our community is prone to this anyway. So they could pick up anybody and say, "Oh, you said something about terrorism, or you wrote something." I could even be picked up because I do a lot of work on terrorism, and they could say I watch or listen to the wrong site and pick me up. So I don't want that. But if, as a parent, you are invited with your son, and they said your son has been associating with individuals who are known within the jihadist organization to are committing offenses. Your son is doing things which we're not pleased with. We're going to place him on a tag. This extremist commission that Theresa May is recommending. If they do it, they should have teeth. If they say, okay, we're putting this boy on a tag, he can't go to certain places, he can go to the mosque, but he can't associate with certain individuals, he can't do this, he has to be at home by 9 o'clock, if they give him that order and the parents are there, if he decides to go outside that rule and decide to associate with known terrorists, then if he gets gunned down in the process of trying to stop him, then so be it. We need to save the many, and not just think about that one that wants to kill all of us. We need to now be very, very strict on the way we do things. When the control order was there, a lot of these things were not happening. And when it's watered down now, all these guys are roaming about the street. We know about Section 40 and Section 66. For people that are listening to me now, if you're a British citizen and you commit a treasonable offense, or and you're getting involved in terrorism, your British citizenship could be withdrawn. It's a royal prerogative. It could be withdrawn now. If people think I'm lying, they should go and check it. Section 40 and Section 66 of the British Immigration Act makes it very, very clear that British citizenship could be withdrawn. And I know the politicians have been a bit, they're playing around with the words and trying to be, but it is right there in House of Parliament library. The information is there. They've been giving advice on this issue, and I know a lot of people might want to come in on this, but if you have kids that are moving towards this violence extremist route, you better put them in check, get help, and that's why we are here as community leaders. We could work with you, because there might be a lot of drivers why they're doing what they're doing, but we could work with you because they will lose their British citizenship. Not only would they lose it, but if I have the opportunity of speaking to security services, I say let's tag them. If anybody is involved in this kind of twisted ideology, we need to tag them. And the mosque also have a responsibility here. You're a churchman, and no, some of us are Christians here. I'm a Christian, and I'm proud to be a Christian. But one of the things we do is that when you enter into the church environment newly, whether converted or you come in, you go through what we call Bible lessons. So they teach you the proper interpretation of the Bible, because all these things, there are things in the Bible that nobody uses now. We don't read it literally and go out there and start killing people. So you need to put people in order. The Islam, the Muslims community need to come out and create a kind of an Islamic or Quranic interpretation, proper interpretation, and ensure that kids who are coming into the mosque are taught about proper interpretation of the Quran. Now, one thing we must give to the Muslim community, and I'm saying this even though I'm a Christian, is that the Muslim community now, you've not heard of any child who has gone through a Muslim school, a faith school, committing this offense, which shows that they must be taught properly about their religion. But what we're saying now is that in the mosque, they must have an interpretation kind of induction to help people to understand how to properly interpret the Quran.
Ashwin, I'm going to ask you your reaction to some of the proposals Tope has made, but let me quickly take this call. I've got this call coming to the studio. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Good morning. Yeah, welcome to the show. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, how are you?
We're very well. Your
Is
name?
that Best Studio, eh?
Yes, your name and where you're calling from.
Okay, London, yeah.
Your name, please? Your name?
Francis.
Francis. Thank you, Francis. Go ahead, Francis.
Yeah, I supported what that gentleman is talking there about extremism, Yeah, people involved in extremism or in foreign terrorism or something, their British citizenship or status could be stripped. Could be stripped from them. So the same thing applies to that nasty idiot, Unadi Kalu. I don't know what.
Can I ask you to mind the use of your language, please? Can I ask you to mind the use of your language, please, so that you're on international channel?
The Nigerian government to sentence it here for extremism. Then we could apply here for a British citizen to be stripped. No, if he's convicted of terrorism. No.
All right. Thanks so much, Francis. Thanks for your contribution, Francis. Thank for being part of the program. Please, when you call into the studio, first turn down the volume of your TV set or you mute it. Just talk straight to your phone, and then please don't mind the use of what's your on international channel. Thanks a lot, Francis. Thanks for calling to the studio. Ashburn, Tokpe has actually come up with a couple of proposals. What are your reactions to some of this?
You asked the question that sort of MPs do a lot. I think MPs themselves haven't got a clue of sort of how we can put any restriction or any form of policies on terrorists at the minute. I think it's something they're struggling with. To them, that's a new phenomenon that just came into place. So we're trying to cope with this new terrorism sort of development we've got in Britain. However, saying this, let's go back. You see, we've got to look at the truth. Truth is important. Yeah. You talk about this young man traveling forward and backwards. Yeah. There is truth in that. And I believe in truth. This young man that was going forward and backwards was known, very well known by the British government. Yes. This young man that was going forward and backwards was used by the British government to fight.
How do you mean used?
Well, they were fighting terror. They were rebels in Libya. They were fighting in Libya, my understanding. They were fighting.
It was never the UK government. Probably the family in Libya, the younger brother in Libya, fought, according to a report, alongside ISIS or the jihadists, but not with the participation or involvement of the UK government.
No, absolutely. So the British government, the government knew about this chap. They knew about he was fighting in Libya, and they knew he was fighting against sort of Gaddafi. That is facts. So we know that. So that is truth. So we got to find the truth. So if you know this thing is happening, as my colleague here said, why didn't we not clamp down on that from day one? We used this because he's fighting against Libya. So as far as they're concerned, he's a rebel. So that, in my opinion, so be it. So we have got nothing to worry about. But when kids at this young age, you know, they got this warped mind. And when they have a warped mind, if we don't control them, as my friend said here, these things will get out of hand, which they have get. So we are struggling with that. coming to the point where you made about sort of...
Can I put you on hold? I'm going to start from coming to that point. You put that in mind. I've got Austin on the line. Austin, thank you for joining us on the program. Good morning, Austin.
Yeah, good morning.
Thanks a lot.
I just want to make a little contribution to your program.
Go ahead and make your contribution, Austin.
Well, I mean, what happened in Manchester was a very terrible thing that happened. And there's no excuse for what happened.
No.
But I think the Western world should stop this habit of going into other countries to invade other countries and create a vacuum in these countries whereby all these, like for example, when they invaded Iraq, invaded Syria, Iraq, toppled Gaddafi from power, and when they attacked Libya, Gaddafi was saying that the people that are fighting against his government, they are all terrorists. And now this vacuum has been created. Now all these terrorists are now finding a way to get through Italy, and from Italy they get to all parts of Europe and commit all these atrocities in Germany, in France, and all over the world. So I mean, we should stop that habit of invading country and making those countries in the Arab world become a lawless place. This will have a big impact on us because what we call sometimes they come back to bite us. And I just want to correct an impression of one of your guests that said that citizenship can be taken away from people. But people who are born in this country, their citizenship cannot be taken away from them. Only people who are naturalized citizens, that their citizenship can be revoked. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks a lot, Francis. Thank you for joining us on the program. Austin, thank you, Austin, for joining us on the program. So we'll start from you were making reference to.
Yeah. So this gentleman actually sort of was going to say exactly what I was going to say. So what I was going to say when it comes to other countries, we've got to look at how we intervene in other countries. This is the point I was going to bring into. So invading other countries for the goods of what we so-call justice. Invading Libya, was that the right thing to do? Invading Syria was the right thing to do. Invading Yemen, which is that the right thing to do? And invading sort of the issues we have global. So if we go into these countries and destroy these countries, and we as the British or the West that invade this country, literally destroy their community, and we just walk away. So what we have? Turmoil. We have turmoil. We have people that's sort of in displacement. We have people that's suffering. We got children. Over 2 million children are suffering. We have starvation, malnutrition. So what else is there? You know, if you destroy or invade a country, you have to maintain that country. You have to actually build and restructure this country. You need to centralize your economical sort of muscles to actually make this country what it is to be. I mean, Libya, despite in what people may say, Libya had a very good, I mean, compared to the standard of living, stable economy, economically stable. I mean, the wealth, the health of these people was beyond even sort of certain of our standards in the West. But yet, you destroy this. For what reason you destroy this? For what reason you invade a country? What gain you get? Obama himself said, if he had known that, he wouldn't have done it. He regrets he did it. But yet, the British government did it. For what reason? Or the Western world did it. So therefore, you leave these people in turmoil. So when we sort of see all these things happening around the world, and those children sort of turn into this sort of radicalization, sometimes you ask yourself, you know, as a human being, are we doing the right thing? Are we sort of is in collaboration with that sort of thing? And your heart goes to see these other families. So when this disastrous thing happened to us in Britain, which is so sad and so heartbreaking, I felt so helpless that you can't do anything to help either side of the party. Coming back to this passport thing, it's not only terrorism they'll take your passport. It's sort of, if you create a crime in Britain, born or no born, they will take your passport away and they will send you back. So despite the Terrorism Act, we need to look at this as well. True. If you create offences as well in Britain, certain offences, 3 times in a year you're in jail or whatever, they will take your passport and will send you back. So this is good. Absolutely. So it's not only terrorism that do that. We've got a high population at the minute as we speak of Caribbean and Africans being sent back to country of origin. And these are parents that's been here for many, many years with their children, that's been born here as well, has been sent back. So it's not...
If a child, if someone is born here, it will go to the height of any decision for the passport to be taken because you're making the person stateless.
Okay.
You're making the person stateless, even regardless of the country where the parents have come from. The fact that the person is born here, you withdraw the person's passport. They cannot send the persons to the family state or country. Because the person is British, born in Britain. What you do is you make the person stateless. They have done it before. Statelessness, making people stateless. And there has been issue that it is unfair to make people
from an international law perspective.
To make people stateless, because obviously when you become stateless, you can't go anywhere. You are absolutely nobody at nothing.
I'm pleased that you said that because you're a student of students of law, so you know.
But it will get to the height of that decision
45
for that to be
45 taken. Have been, for your viewers that is calling, 45 people's passport have been withdrawn already. It's statistics. Many people don't know this. You see, a lot of people think
born in this country.
That's
stateless.
They make it stateless. In country made it stateless. But now, even within the last few days, it has been said that the Home Secretary had already taken certain steps, and all the people that are overseas, maybe in Syria and the others, they've already withdrawn. That's because passport is a royal prerogative, and people miss this up. I used to work in UK border agency, so I know what I'm talking about, and people need to go and check this out. Section 66 of the British Immigration Act talks about people that have indefinite leave. So many people think, oh, it's because you have indefinite leave, which is you're nationalized, so they can withdraw that and return you to your country of origin, which is what many people do. But what people do not understand is that there are 6 levels of British citizenship. 6 levels. And under Section 40 of the Immigration Act, I stand to be corrected, British citizenship could be withdrawn and you could be made stateless. Now, what it says is conducive to. So I'm British. I was born in this state. My kids are British, but they will be made stateless, and that's why they withdraw people's passport. They withdraw their passport, make them stateless, which means they can't travel anywhere. And that is even better because it's not like they're saying we're going to remove you to another country. But if they found themselves in another country, like one of your viewer called in about Kanu, the Biafran agitator, if the British, because what we need to understand here is that it is only when they want to do it. But if they really want to do it, they could say that he has acted in a way that is inconducive to public good, and they would withdraw his British passport so that it can't even come back to the UK. So people should be aware of this. And one of the things I've said in one of my write-up is, where does this public good stop? Conducive to public good. Because if you beat your wife, or if you have an argument with your wife or with your neighbor, is that conducive to public good? If you hold a knife on the road, gun and knife crime issue, is that conducive? So that's the reason why we need to stand up now as communities, and I'm saying to us as communities, we need to stand up and start talking within our community and finding out how to resolve this issue. Because when the push gets to push and they start withdrawing people's citizenship, and we are all sitting down there saying, no, I have British passport, so it doesn't affect me. It could affect you at any point. And that's the reason why we need to all stand up and start looking at it. So I advise people to go and read up on this and understand this and call their children and talk to them and let them understand that, you know what, when you're in Rome, you act like a Roman. You're here. No, let's be good citizens in this country. Let's contribute. Let's add value like we are doing individually. Collectively, let's add value and make Britain a great place.
Right, we're still talking about the role of politicians. On Saturday over the weekend, Jeremy Corbyn made an address where he spoke about changing. If he does get elected, said he's going to change his foreign policies, attributing some of the violent extremism to the Western involvement in international wars, the UK involvement in wars across the world, and he's come under a huge attack. Ashburn, would you agree with Jeremy Corbyn that the government indicate actually does need to review its foreign policy? And was he right in his comment?
Well, I support what he said. What he said makes sense. What he said is sort of we need to change. We're now in the 21st century. We need to move on. We can't live on the old colonial sort of days of sort of policies that we had. And we have to look at the whole infrastructure of how we're going to improve our security and improve security abroad. So Jeremy has got a point. And, you know, for the people that sort of against it, you see, the typical thing about even the other parties, they always look at any ideas that come in, they try to fight it. We have to accept change. We have to look at things around. Even the Liberal Democrat, they got their own policies, Conservative got their own policies. And I think in times like this, we should have a joint party discussion where they all sit around the table, look at the best way forward, not only for the British people, but for nationals as well.
I have to say that I agree that to some extent the foreign policy is responsible. I was part of a delegate from the from our community here that traveled to Tripoli at one point, and I met Gaddafi. And not that I shook his hand, I did not shake his hand. I was part of the delegate that went there, and it was a lovely, beautiful country. And I was saddened to see how the country was blown into pieces. And I think the issue of foreign policy needs to be reviewed. There's no doubt about that. I think our international aid needs to be reviewed. We're giving international aid to countries that persecute Christians. You know, Pakistan, they persecute Christians. And as a member of the Christian People Alliance, I think we should stop giving money to countries that persecute Christians. You know, where people's hand, where women do not have freedom to drive cars, you know, and we're in Britain and we talk about equal rights, and yet we're giving money to countries where rights of women are being restricted. So definitely we need to review our foreign policy. And I believe, like my brother mentioned earlier, you know, when you look at from Afghanistan to Iraq to Syria, there are times when the British government had turned a blind eye to people going into the country to fight what they quoted as dictators. You know, and they turn a blind eye to it, and it's like, oh yeah, we celebrate those people, they are heroes. But what happened is that these people come back to bite you. You know, and I'm not saying what they're doing is right, where we completely are against it. But if you want to fight against a dictator, join the British Army. Super short. Join the British Army, go through a number of us, but don't go and say we're joining a jihadist group and get twisted around. One of the guys that actually went to Iraq, and I think it's John, Jihadi John and the others, some of them went under legal aid. They went under aid to taking food to Syria to go and support the family there, and then they twisted around. So some of them, there are different drivers, like I mentioned earlier, to terrorism. But one of the biggest driver is foreign aid, foreign policy, and identity crisis within our community.
Okay, all right. I've got Bright from Germany on the line. Bright, thank you for joining us on the program. Good morning, Bright. Morning, Bright. Good morning, Bright. Are you still there? Do I have Bright on the line?
Yeah, good morning.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please, I just want to contribute to the withdrawing of our British.
Go on. Turn down the volume of your TV set.
I just want to contribute to the withdrawing of our British passport. To be honest with you, if you are a citizen or you are along, yeah, it's already down. It's already down. Okay, just hold on. Okay.
Yeah.
If you are a British national, now it might be you migrated from a different country or you born there. You have to abide by the rule of the game because you are not a British citizen, you think you can do everything and you go free with it. No, that is not acceptable at all. Like myself, I'm a Nigerian. I've been in Germany now for over 20 years. I have 3 kids here. They have Germans. So I wouldn't say because they are Germans, they should be misbehaving. As a father, I always advise them, my kids, stay away from crime. That is what a father should do, and which I'm really doing. But there is also another thing the Africans in diaspora need to address. we should be talking to our leaders back home. The kind of humiliation our people are facing in Europe. Okay? Our people should be addressing that because it's very, very important. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Brad from Germany. Thanks for calling to the studio and for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you so much, Brad.
I'm quite pleased with
Bright.
that Bright, Mr. Bright, and I wish him all the best of luck with his kids that is nurturing and building up to become good citizens. For some of our viewers that might not be aware, actually, Germany, in some few months ago, actually withdrew the citizenship of two Nigerians who are Germans born in Germany. They withdrew their citizenship because of
Really?
Yeah, they withdrew it. So people should go, and this is the reason why people need to read this thing up. We are into this. This is what we do, and we know that they're doing it in Austria and other countries too. So what we need to do as a community is to look at how I call myself British Nigerian. Even though I was born here, I still have, I still love Nigeria. I eat Nigerian food. I eat Caribbean food. I eat all kind of food. But I'm British, and I'll do everything to add value to this country, and that's why I'm standing for where I'm standing for. But we need, as a community, to come together now and start looking at how to help our children here to be productive members of the community and also to add value. Because when the busker, the guy that the international busker that got his belt, when he got his belt now, Joshua, Nigeria is claiming him. They're even sending delegates from his fatherland to say, oh yes, you're from Ogun State, and we're going to send a delegate to come and
That's the highest level of unseriousness from that government. Highest level of unseriousness.
I know, but what I'm trying to say is that a good son is owned by everybody. A bad son is disowned by all. So we need to understand that we need to train our children to add value to us. So what I'm trying to bring out from that joke or from that discussion is everybody will claim it. If his father actually had a link with Benin Republic because his father lived there, they will also come out and say, yeah, he lived in Benin before. So when somebody does something good, everybody wants to claim it, and that's what we want. We want our children to be adding value. We have children that are having first class having first class degree. We have children that are adding values in where they work, and we should be celebrating ourselves, celebrating what we are doing, celebrating what our kids are doing. But in the same time, kids that are going off the rail, we must find ways to have people within the community that can mentor them. We have community mentors that could mentor them, and the Muslim community need to come up and really help, because within the Muslim community there is a lot of denial, and we need to do that.
All right, let's quickly take a short break now. When we come back, we'll continue the program. I think we should be bringing in another guest to join my existing guests in the studio. We'll take a very short break now. I'll be back. You don't need to go away. The program is still on. Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the weekend. I'm Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program today. Prime Minister Theresa May, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, and Tim Farron of the Lib Dem have described the Manchester attack as barbaric and appalling. The leaders condemned the attack, calling it a failed attempt by terrorist groups to divide Britain. The attack was carried out by a lone suicide bomber, Salma Abedi, who has been identified as having links with the terrorist organization ISIS.
Thoughts and prayers are with the victims and the families and friends of all those affected. It is now beyond doubt that the people of Manchester and of this country have fallen victim to a callous terrorist attack, an attack that targeted some of the youngest people in our society with cold calculation. This was among the worst terrorist incidents we have ever experienced in the United Kingdom. And although it is not the first time Manchester has suffered in this way, it is the worst attack the city has experienced and the worst ever to hit the north of England. The police and security services are working at speed to establish the complete picture, but I want to tell you what I can at this stage. At 10:33 last night, the police were called to reports of an explosion at Manchester Arena in Manchester city centre near Victoria train station. We now know that a single terrorist detonated his improvised explosive device near one of the exits of the venue, deliberately choosing the time and place to cause maximum carnage and to kill and injure indiscriminately. The explosion coincided with the conclusion of a pop concert, which was attended by many young families and groups of children. All acts of terrorism are cowardly attacks on innocent people, but this attack stands out for its appalling, sickening cowardice, deliberately targeting innocent, defenseless children and young people who should have been enjoying one of the most memorable nights of their lives. As things stand, I can tell you that, in addition to the attacker, 22 people have died and 59 people have been injured. Those who were injured are being treated in 8 different hospitals across Greater Manchester. Many are being treated for life-threatening conditions. And we know that among those killed and injured were many children and young people. We struggle to comprehend the warped and twisted mind that sees a room packed with young children not as a scene to cherish, but as an opportunity for carnage. But we can continue to resolve to thwart such attacks in future, to take on and defeat the ideology that often fuels this violence, and if there turn out to be others responsible for this attack, to seek them out and bring them to justice. The police and security services believe that the attack was carried out by one man, but they now need to know whether he was acting alone or as part of a wider group. It will take some time to establish these facts, and the investigation will continue. The police and security services will be given all the resources they need to complete that task. The police and security services believe they know the identity of the perpetrator, but at this stage of their investigations, we cannot confirm his name. The police and emergency services have, as always, acted with great courage, and on behalf of the country, I want to express our gratitude to them. They acted in accordance with the plans they have in place and the exercises they conduct to test those plans, and they performed with the utmost professionalism. 400 police officers were involved in the operation through the night, and many paramedics, doctors and nurses have worked valiantly amid traumatic and terrible scenes to save lives and care for the wounded. Significant resources have been deployed to the police investigation, and there continue to be visible patrols around Manchester, which include the deployment of armed officers. For people who live and work in Manchester, there remains a large cordon in place around Manchester Arena and Victoria Station, which will be in place for some time. The station is closed and will remain closed while a detailed forensic search is underway. We know that many friends and relatives of people caught up in the attack are still trying to find out what has happened to their children, brothers and sisters, parents and loved ones. So please, think of those people who are experiencing unimaginable worry, and if you have any information at all relating to the attack, please contact Greater Manchester Police.
And we must support those people that have suffered so much, those families that have lost young ones, those families that still don't quite know what is happening with their own children. This is the most terrible and traumatic time. In these circumstances, we have to come together. In these circumstances, a city and a community comes together in solidarity and in strength. So we carry on. We don't allow these attacks and these people to divide us or prevent us from leading the decent, normal lives that we all want to lead. I spoke to the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, about this overnight as well, and he sent out a very strong statement saying exactly that. And he also thanked cities all around the world that have sent their solidarity to Manchester today, as indeed I do myself.
And your message to the families of those involved?
I'm terribly sorry and terribly sad for you. There can be nothing worse than losing a child in a situation like this. We have to put our arms around them and support them, not just today, but in all the very difficult days to come, because trauma like this doesn't go in a day or two. It's there with them for the rest of their lives. We have to give them all the support we possibly can.
Now, Ben TV presents to you another live current affairs television program. Our focus on the program is to review and discuss issues around the diaspora community in the UK. The program offers you the unrestricted voice on issues live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon.